It's like Oprah. You get a tariff, you get a tariff, you get a tariff, everybody gets a tariff. So Trump is at it again with more tariff threats. This time on Russia as well as BRICS. BRICS, remember, is that group of countries that is trying to compete with the US dollar on a global stage. Now, to Trump, this is a threat because it is true. If the US loses its world reserve currency, the dollar, that would be a very serious problem, not just for the US government, but for the average American citizen. So today, let's talk about those two new tariff threats. First on Russia, then on BRICS. As always, my name is Derek. I got my degree in finance. You don't have to. Let's dive right in. Okay, so first, Russia, because Russia was threatened with 100% tariffs within the next 50 days if the conflict in Ukraine isn't solved. Basically, if there isn't a peace deal. Now, on the surface, this seems like Trump is being tough on Russia. In fact, during his original reciprocal tariffs, people were wondering, why didn't he tariff Russia? Now, the answer to that question is also what makes this interesting. So the answer to that question was that, well, Russia is a very, very sanctioned country. Not only that, but we hardly do any trade with Russia, just a few $billion a year. So at the time, the answer was, well, what's the point of tariffs? Russia is already sanctioned into oblivion, and any added tariff isn't really going to do much, especially on top of the fact that we don't trade much with Russia. Okay, well, and then now we have to ask the same question. So how are these 100% tariffs going to be meaningfully painful enough to Russia to actually cause a change in behavior? Because Trump tends to use tariffs to get his way. That seems to be really what tariffs are about. It's not about bringing jobs back to America. At least it doesn't seem to be that. And it's not really about treating America fairly on the global stage, because if that were the case, then these reciprocal tariffs, which punished small countries simply for having a trade surplus with the United States, wouldn't have been implemented. So in reality, tariffs for Trump are a way to get something from other people. So, of course, the question is then, are these tariffs going to get Trump's way when it comes to Russia? My opinion, no. I mean, he could have put 1,000% tariffs on Russia. The amount of trade is so minimal between Russia and the United States that really the main key economic pain applier is sanctions, which Russia is already sanctioned into oblivion. Not only that, but the United States has to coordinate with its allies to put pressure on Russia, primarily in its oil exports, to be able to actually cause any sort of significant pain. But tariffs between the United States and Russia, that doesn't seem like it's going to work or do anything when it comes to stopping the war in Ukraine. Not only that, he's giving a 50-day timeline. Not to get entirely political, but Trump said that he would end this conflict on day one. We're 4 months in, and this conflict is still raging on with loss of life on both sides. So is this new 100% tariff threat actually going to do anything, or is it just so he stays relevant in the news? You can tell me. Okay, now let's talk about the tariffs on the BRICS nations. This is a 10% tariff. He basically posted this on Truth Social, saying that any country that aligns with the anti-American policies, and I'm paraphrasing here, of BRICS will face a 10% tariff. Now, one, is BRICS inherently anti-American? I mean, maybe on the surface, no, but it is a group of countries that wants to change the narrative on the global stage. America has the world reserve currency through the dollar, okay? All that means is that trade is conducted heavily through the US dollar, because when countries trade with each other, they don't want to have to trade with another country and then watch the money that they received from that other country plummet because of either exchange rates or inflation. So instead, they trade in US dollars because the US dollar is relatively stable. Now, there are other stable currencies. A lot of European countries have stable currencies. The euro in itself for the European Union is a stable currency, but also is, the Great British Pound, etc., the Swiss franc. So there are others, but the U.S. has for a long time held the world reserve currency, and that helps the United States. It helps it be able to fund its growing debt because there is the debt as well as receiving foreign investment, those are correlated. And the US cannot continue to fund its debt, which in turn funds its GDP growth, if it stops receiving foreign investment. So all this is tied together through what's known as the national income identity. Okay, it's not really a formula, but I'll call it a formula. It's an identity that basically puts all these pieces together and equates it to GDP. Okay, so it is very important for the US. It's also important for interest rates. It's important for inflation, holding down inflation. I mean, all these things are tied to this. So yes, it would be a serious problem if the US lost its world reserve currency through the US dollar. Now, the BRICS nations, this group of countries which just held their conference in Brazil, which is one of the members, the founding members, they say that their purpose is not to compete or not to create a new currency that competes directly with the US dollar. They say, in fact, what they're trying to accomplish is that trade takes place in local currency. Basically, what I just said, the reason why a lot of countries don't want to do that is because a lot of local currencies, they're too volatile. So you might get paid today for your shipment in this local currency, and then tomorrow it might be only worth half in US dollars because of exchange rates or because inflation in that country or money printing is very, very high. So they say BRICS is trying to compete with that. In reality, also, in my opinion, what BRICS really wants is they want to compete with SWIFT. Okay, SWIFT is this system that is basically controlled by the United States. And in reality, if you get locked out of SWIFT, like what happened for Russia, what happened to Russia when it started the Ukraine war, it can be very, very detrimental to basically be able to do globalized transactions because all these banks connect via SWIFT. So, of course, what BRICS really, in my opinion, is trying to do is trying to basically put out a competitor that can compete with this. So if these nations upset the United States, enter a conflict with the United States, in any way, in any which way, do not align with Western values, even if they're kicked off SWIFT, they will have an alternative to use. That, to me, is the actual true reason for BRICS. And then you ask yourself, well, is this anti-American? I mean, okay. On one side, I want to say yes, because these countries tend to want to, I don't want to say want to, but they want to challenge the United States, or there's a higher chance of conflict with the United States. These countries in BRICS, primarily China, okay, Russia, okay. So on one side of the coin, yes. On the second side of the coin, I mean, anybody should have the freedom to create an alternative to SWIFT or to the US dollar or to a digital currency or to anything else in a free and fair globe or world. So on one side, yeah, I think the underlying reasons are probably to be able to basically put a buffer between themselves and the United States in the case of conflict, but at the same time, they have every right to do it. So Trump is threatening 10% on any country that aligns with this, basically as a way to deter. I don't think he cares about the countries that are already aligned with BRICS or are the founding members. They're not going anywhere. But so more countries don't join, I think that is his goal. And I do think that a 10% tariff, if it's actually implemented, could be a good deterrent, because right now, when you compare BRICS to the US dollar or BRICS to SWIFT, I mean, the choice is obvious. The US dollar is going to, for probably the foreseeable few decades, if ever, is going to remain the world reserve currency and won't be toppled for a while. And then SWIFT really is the gold standard for, tying in all these transactions and these banks. And as long as you're not at war with the United States, you're probably not going to get kicked off SWIFT. I mean, look what it took Russia to get kicked off SWIFT. So I do think it will deter some countries from joining. Now, is he actually going to implement it? I actually think yes. In this case, I do think he's going to implement it. I mean, tariffs are Trump's favorite word. He tariffed this, tariff this. It's kind of like, it's like Oprah. You get a tariff, you get a tariff, you get a tariff, everybody gets a tariff, right? But yeah, I do think that he very much could actually implement this and move through this. Now remember, this comes on the fact that there are all the reciprocal tariffs are supposed to start August 1st. He placed a 50% tariff on Brazil because he didn't like the treatment of their former president. I mean, he's just tariffing everybody. Now we'll see if August comes around, August 1st, and this actually goes through. But when it comes to these two, I hope this was informative. I don't want to drag this video out too long. That's really what happened. 100% tariffs on Russia if the Ukraine conflict isn't solved. I don't think it's going to be solved in 50 days, and I don't think 100% tariffs are going to do anything, but they sound good. 10% tariffs on BRICS, mostly because yes, the world reserve currency not being the US dollar would be detrimental to the United States, but also I don't think Trump wants BRICS to come up with an alternative, which their alternative, it officially has reached minimum viable product stage, which means that it is a functioning product. Now, it's not global or a lot of people aren't using it, but it is a functioning product, okay? So, yeah, I think those are the two main reasons. I hope this video was informative. I hope you like this more casual style. Usually I'm very edited, cut, but sometimes it's nice just to come on here and talk to you guys and have a conversation. So if you like this style, please let me know. I definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, if you like personal finance, world economics, investing, you are in the right place. So I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, rest of your week. Take care.